so I worked in the rehab department as an outreach program coordinator, working with newly injured spinal cord injuries, helping them transition into the world after as inpatients and outpatients transition into the world with their injury.
Yeah, so I'm going to show a video before we get started, and I'll hand it over to Woody after that.
Water skiing, wakeboarding, mono skiing, I rock climb, I love riding bicycles. When I'm like in that zone, it's just a different adrenaline feeling, like when you're just tapped in, pushing the envelope. Everything, it just, around you just kind of it's gone. I've always been adventurous. I'm living life to the fullest. I'm Woody. I'm a T12 complete paraplegic, which means I have no sensation from the waist down. Before my accident, everything I did revolved around my athleticism and my body. In my 20s, I just kind of set into a direction, but with the uncertainty and the unknown, but just dove in. You know, like I had nothing to lose. Didn't know where that next, after that gig was done, didn't know where it was coming to next. And just things just fell into place. It was just like after doing that, I'd meet somebody, it'd land me here, the American dream. I'd go to awesome parties. I met my wife and I instantly connected with her, and it was awesome.
He's always someone that challenged me to do things that maybe was out of my comfort zone. And I always felt safe with him, so I would always do it.
It was a perfect fit, it was a perfect match. And I was right where I wanted to be. And then this happened to me. You know, the accident. I was hanging out with my friends, and I just bought my new motorcycle, and it was an early evening. I was just popping over there, say a quick hello, have a burger, and I left right around 9:45, 10 o'clock at night. I didn't see the person at all. The only thing I remember is I saw the side mirror really close to me, and I was trajected off my motorcycle, and then I was knocked unconscious. As soon as I came to, I was disoriented, but I realized that something was really wrong. I couldn't feel from the waist down. My body was ripped apart.
And they told me that, Woody had just been in a severe accident and that I had to come as fast as I could.
My T12, thoracic 12 vertebra, was decimated. My T11 was a little compromised, but T12 decimated, fractured all in my spine.
I refused to believe what the doctors were telling me, that my husband was never going to walk again.
And it's so funny because I'm past it, but when I think about it, it's just so, the emotion that comes up is so powerful, because it was such a traumatic experience for me and for her. I was going through a lot of stuff, coming to terms with the injury. Everything, it just kept piling on. Like, how do I get myself up out of bed into my chair without falling on the floor? And that includes getting this installation with this chairlift in our house, It's how much worse can this get?
I could see that, his mind was going into dark places and stuff. And I would just tell him, you can go there, but you need to come back to the light, and not stay in the dark too long.
I was so unsure if this was the life that I wanted to live out in this body. you know, because of the like truly not knowing what I could create with it.
There was nothing left in him. There was no fight. It was just, you know, just broken. It was just a spirit that was completely broken and lost.
But in the end, it really was the imprint on the world that I want to leave behind. Like now, when things really get hard, you're gonna punk out. That is not who I am. I am not going out like that. My really close friend got me back in the water wakeboarding again, and that truly was my therapy right there. Being out there, everything just dissolved. It was like I was back doing the things that I love to do, and my injury was not in the forefront anymore. Once I came into myself of just like, oh, this isn't gonna hold me back, I'm still gonna do all the things that I love to do with the person that I love, I said, when I get to a place, this is what I wanna do. A defining moment, I said, I wanna help others that are going through this. I am so honored with what I do now, working with newly injured spinal cord injuries and guiding them through the trials and tribulations that they go through, because there's more. And I'm here to share what is out there and the possibilities that are out there. The look on their face, like their achievement is, it's overwhelming. Like words can't describe what that is. This circumstance can bring a beauty into your life that you never could have imagined of being, which is awesome. I mean, you know, it sucks being in a wheelchair, but if you yourself, once you get through this hurdle, it's like you can turn this around and make it bigger than yourself.
That's a lot to take on. That's a dear friend of mine. I actually went to high school with her, and her name is Shara Collins. She reached out to me, when did we do that? About a year and a half ago. I've been injured, just to give you, I don't know if it mentioned it, but I've been injured for almost 7 years now. I was injured October 11, 2012. And a little editing faux pas there. It's actually have no sensation or movement either. It's like clearly, it's like that's why I'm in a wheelchair. But yeah, I mean that pretty much captures like the truth of where I was. It doesn't really talk about the experience while I was in the hospital. So the hospital, I won't throw down names. I wasn't at Mount Sinai. They were a decent hospital as an inpatient, but I felt like when it came to the emotional and the psychological support of going through what I was going through was not there at all, which surprised me. It really took me aback, and I always love to add this because it's the absurdity level is over the top. So after my injury, around that time, that's when Sandy hit, and the hospital that I was in, I was on the 11th floor. I literally just got out of the ICU. I just started my physical therapy. I was like maybe 3 days into my physical therapy, like barely, I didn't even know how to get dressed on my own, you know? And next thing you know, I'm being evacuated, going up to the Bronx, the Hebrew home, getting removed from my family, my friends, and I literally, it's just like I couldn't believe what just happened to me, and then on top of that happened to me as well. And of course, I was in this place of my main focal point was just to, okay, well, if this is how it is, let me at least go with what I know, and that's to strengthen my body. As you know, the video says, I was very athletic. That's what I did. My practice that I had my own private practice prior to my injury as a massage therapist and a body worker, as an avid yogi, very much tuned into that community, and I had a thriving business at that time. So everything that revolved around my life had to do with my physicality. I mean, of course, outside of my theoretical training, everything and all that, that's to the side, but what I did was very physical. So I didn't know what the hell I was going to be doing. Like even not that I was thinking about it, but I was at the same time, just like, am I just going to have this person take care of me for the rest of my life? Like, I just didn't know, because there was no support network in that process that I was going through. And ironically, while I was, laying in bed and my wife was adamantly trying to find somebody to come to my bedside, so I had this commonality that I can ask questions, and I've been in a wheelchair, that's something. And even the hospital that they were in, they're like, no, you got to find that on your own once you leave here. So at that moment, as I was an inpatient, I was like, well, I think this is something that I want to do, and I didn't know how I was going to do it, or where those roads or those doors were going to open up for me, but I was like, that's what I want to do. But obviously, fast forward, I get discharged, go home, still going through my therapy. At this point, this is when I'm starting to be introduced into the roller community, which to me, again, I can't stress this enough, I had no idea how vast it was, and it is out there at that time. I was just like, I guess there's not that many people in wheelchairs or with spinal cord injuries around, and I'm just gonna have to figure this all out on my own. I'm very fortunate that I had, as I mentioned, family and really my friends, I call my cosmic family, here in the city, that just pushed me and got me out, and got me doing the things I love to do. Wakeboarding is one of them that you guys saw, and that was my saving grace right there. It's that was the best therapy that I could have ever received during that time. And I'm not just talking about the physicality component, I'm talking about the mental. Because I was in it. I was contemplating my mortality, whether or not I want to live out the rest of my life like this. Everybody goes through it. I'm not afraid to talk about it. That's my wife. She said it's go to the dark side, just come back to the light. She would allow me to go there. I feel, my mental preparation for this. I had a lot of that goes through my yoga training. Not to go too deep into that, but it allowed me the space to not be afraid to go into that place in order to just muddle through everything and come out of it and rise out of it. But having that outlet that one friend in particular that sought out adaptive equipment to adapt my wakeboard and all that, that really just kind of it was oh, okay, so I'm just going to be I'm going to have a similar lifestyle that I had. It's just going to be a little different, or a lot different, And then within that, I met this guy, Alex Elagudin. If you don't know him, he's a big player now in the city. Right now, he's working with the MTA, trying to make all the subways accessible, right? But I didn't know this guy from Adam to Eve. He had his own adaptive organization, that nonprofit organization for people with disabilities, and worked with people with spinal cord injury specifics. Now this guy, he's a quadriplegic. And my wife, when she was talking to him, which this blew her mind, she still talks about this today. he was driving over to her. I was like, I'll be over to your house. She told Alex my situation. He's like, where do you live? I'll come over and visit with you. This was like around February, in 2013 at this point, February, and my house was not accessible at this point. And he's like telling my wife, he's like, yeah, I'm driving over right now. She's like, whoa, wait a minute. You're a quadriplegic, and you're driving, and you're talking to me at the same time. Like, how? Like, she couldn't wrap her head around that, and neither could I. I was just like, what? And then, of course, I met Alex, and he was the beginning of introducing me into the community. And once I got into the community, then it was just like, oh my God, like there's so much going on. And then, of course, I just started putting myself just putting myself out there, doing a lot more, getting more involved in the sports that I enjoy, and then putting myself out there to help coordinate events with, starting off with Alex and the Wheeling Forward and the Access Project that he now owns. And that led me into this, again, it's just the stars were aligned perfectly. The position opened up at Mount Sinai for this outreach program coordinator. My predecessor, Jim Cesario, he was retiring, and it opened up. And at this point, I was like 3 years into my 3 years injured. And at that point, I was just doing so much, like within the community, and I guess just from on the other side of people that have been injured for as long as they have, that they just saw this, like me on this trajectory that was just like, they're like, this guy's unbelievable. And but to me, it's like I didn't, obviously I was doing this for the sake of myself. Just to get my life back on track, and in any case, the position opened up, and there's a little hesitation of me getting this position because of how early I was into my injury. They felt like that might be a conflict within working with these newly injured patients, and then of course helping them transition into the real world. But of course, and I think this is what got me the position, was I kind of used that as a catalyst. It's like, well, I think that it actually would be beneficial on my part and on the patient's part more so, is because there's still like that rawness within myself, that I have such an empathy to what they're going through, and just being present with that process with them, which I very much am, and just knowing where each person is, and just knowing how to navigate within that particular situation, and I firmly believe that during my interview that is what got me the position and moving forward to what I do today, which is working with patients, and sometimes I still get emotional at times when I'm in the room with some of these patients, and because that feeling, it's even though it's deep within me, and I've navigated, and I've gone through it, and it's not so much on the sleeve anymore. But when I am in company of somebody else that is in that place, it's just hard not to. It's hard not to have that emotion come up. But it's okay to share that moment with them, that I feel, and I think that they appreciate that as well. And then, by the way, I'm here to talk, but by all means, if you guys have any want to join in the conversation, please do, or have questions. Don't hesitate for a second, because this is, to me, is a conversation.
I have a question. So you said when you were having your hospital experience, there weren't resources, right?
Not at all.
So you're here now, And has that changed, or as I'm from marketing?
Okay.
So I guess that's my first question, has it changed, and is there anything that marketing can do to support your efforts to help create that community that hasn't changed?
You're talking about changed within Mount Sinai, or?
In general.
Well, Mount Sinai had and still has like one of the strongest, specifically for spinal cord injury support system there is within all the hospitals in New York City. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
no. I mean,
Yeah.
so that's a very good question.
Yeah.
I know, like, so Alex and his team, like with Wheeling Forward and also with the Access Project, Lawrence Harding, so let me go back. Like after I was discharged from the hospital, was that? Yeah, the hospital. I don't, it's like I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but since I were filming, I'm not gonna badmouth. My outpatient therapy was for actually the saving grace of and again, this is all timing. It's amazing. It's all timing, but my occupational therapist at this hospital, she was an occupational therapist at Mount Sinai in the rehab unit that I currently work at. Her name is Maneshka. She was my OT as an outpatient, and instantly, like I was just, she's still my dear friend. Funny enough, my occupational therapy as an inpatient and outpatient, they don't work at this hospital anymore, by the way. I'm very close with them both, but Maneshka, she just got this position at this hospital, and there's like all the bureaucratic nonsense that's going on. But on she could see is like I was so hungry to progress and to get my independence back, whatever that meant to me in that moment as I was trying to figure out, right? And she could see that, but my physical therapist was so green working with somebody, and I could tell right out the gate. I mean, and I don't roll in and start flexing as it's like, hey, I had my own business with this, that, and the other. It's like, I don't do that. I give that person the opportunity, and I want to progress and learn and grow with these individuals and this young physical therapist that I was set up with. She clearly, I could tell she never worked with anybody with my situation. I could tell that right out the gate. And when I was she was asking me to set goals for myself and what I wanted to do, I kind of gave her certain things, and I felt like I wasn't being heard. And that's another big, that kind of gets underneath my skin a little bit, on that level. It's like, oh, okay, so now you just have your agenda, your textbook agenda, but you're not listening to me and you're not fully seeing what my capabilities are and what my capacity is. So and my wife, she was just she's like, all right, you can be a bit, and I was like, I know. It's like, give her another chance, and it's like, okay, I will, and I did. I gave her 3 tries, but Maneshka this whole time, through my occupational therapy, she was doing more physical therapy with me in my occupational sessions than I was getting through my PT. But then through her, I met this guy, Lawrence Harding. This is the segue through. He was, and I was paying a little bit. My insurance covered a portion of that, but I was definitely paying a bit out of pocket, but it was well worth it because this guy, right out the gate, and this is love Lawrence. He's an amazing physical therapist, thinks way outside the box when it comes to especially working with spinal cord injuries, but people with disabilities across the board. And as soon as I rolled in, one of the things that I really want to do is get up in a standing frame and do some of my therapy within that. And I asked this PT to do that. I didn't have to say anything to this guy. I roll in there. He's like, let's get you in a standing frame and see what you got. Didn't have to say anything to this person. And that's at that moment, it was just I knew, I was like, oh my God, literally tears were coming out of my eyes because I was like, is that so hard? And then, again, at that point, I do stuff with Lawrence too. He's a dear friend of mine, and moving forward. And again, that's where he got me involved into, or moved me into this position at Mount Sinai Rehab.
That was my question. So
Yeah.
what is your position exactly? Like, what do you do? A typical day?
Typical day, okay. So usually I'll hit the unit first. Well, I'll go to my office and check out if we have any new patients on the floor, and then just see what other patients are still around. When their discharge dates are set. Once I have all that down, then I'll go down onto the floor and I'll meet with each one of them and just kind of check in with them, see how they're doing, not just with their physical therapy, obviously, but also mentally, like where they're at, if they ever have any questions. And it's like commonly there's a lot of challenging questions that come up with like bowel routine, bladder routine, their like sexuality. That's a big one with the guys, and all those things are I mean, because those are questions that came up within me, and the difference is I had to figure out a lot of it on my own, I constantly just kind of revamp those questions. And it's like, do you have any questions with me? And also, like, for some of these individuals, I gotta break down the barrier, like earn their trust in those moments, because they have a lot of people coming at them, with the doctors and the therapist and everything else, and of course the big one is them really trying to wrap their head around what their life is going to be like now post-injury. So, and that's the big one. But within all that, I have to earn their trust in order to open up. And sometimes it takes some time, but within that of just kind of keep coming to the room and making myself disposable to them is I find that to be
So you're kind of like a supplement to the medical training. So like they already have the medical people, and you're kind of like an added value to the medical.
That's correct. Yeah, so I work in working with the physical therapist, especially when it comes to wheelchair. I do a wheelchair mobility training class. That's more for outpatient, but with some of the inpatients, they advance really quickly. So like I'll kind of get with the therapist and do some stuff with them, especially when we go outside. Seeing where they're at, kind of giving them my perspective, because it's like I do it every single day. So not to say that our therapists aren't well trained in teaching the patients, because they are. But yeah, so there is a lot of collaboration with not just the therapists, with the doctors, like with these individuals. And then another component of my job is a peer mentoring program, which I'm also facilitate that. I do a training module for that. I go out and I seek these other individuals that have been, they're out in the community, they got like doing their own thing, they're working, whatever, as a spinal cord injury. And what I try to do to the best I can with the resources that I have is pair up these individuals with these inpatients, so that they have like, especially when it comes to higher levels, because there's certain things that I don't have that commonality with them, but I think it's important that they have, like that same ground where they can, it's like, oh, okay, well, this person clearly is navigating through the world with a similar injury level as me, so they're gonna know a bit more than what I would know, and that's 100% true, So yeah, what was?
First, thank you so much for sharing all this. And being
No,
here
my
with us.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to know, because you said you work with them almost every day. How is it that you can, say on a bad day that you're having, how is it that you can push through and/or encourage, or how do you handle that when you know you really can't handle a new situation?
That's a good question. Honestly, I'm really good at curbing my own personal stuff aside. When I need to step into a role, I step into that role, and I'm really good at that. and I know like the you know, and don't get me wrong, like I'll take a moment even when I you know get into my office, if I need a moment to just really collect myself and to get to the mental place that I need to be in order to be present, empathetic, and just to be there for these individuals, I'll take that time to do so. Because there is a lot of other stuff that I can just not mindless, but like I don't need that emotional or like a huge mental capacity to get it done. You know, I can just like do it on the computer, and then once I have my groove or I'm in the zone, then I can go there. But like commonly, like and another, you know, it's good for you to bring that up because there's a couple other individuals that work. One in particular, she works in the office with me, doing more of the data collection, everything that we do for spinal cord injuries. And she's in a wheelchair as well. She's a bit lower level injury than me, but you know, we continue on. We have side effects with this injury. Spasticity, neuropathic pain is mine, and Ariani's, who's a dear friend of mine that works in the same office with me. And that can be quite challenging, like especially when nerve pain, like I know when I throw that out there, it's like you guys have no idea what that translates to, but it can be quite painful. As I sit here now, I have nerve pain. It's just at a very minimal, and I've gotten to a place with my injury that I know how to just push it to the background. But the days that it's like, and when I say pain level is from a 7 to a 10, I literally just push through it, and eventually it kind of it fades to the background. And because I don't like taking the drugs. I have tried the medication. I hate it, and I just like to be alert and very present in my body and with the community around me. So that's my choice. I know other people have, and not to pass judgment on them. It's like that's what works for them. But for myself, that's what it works. But I mean, there are times where I'm literally, it's just like it's so intense that I have to just kind of take that moment. But that's why I do all these sports too, and that's why I get these individuals involved into the sports, because that is a huge catalyst to help with the side effects that comes with this injury. Is like the sport, and I'm not saying like, you know, these are the sports that I do. There's like a ton of sports out there, but when you're doing it and you're so active in it, it literally, it just represses that, whatever that trigger that's happening with the neurosynapse that is creating this, you know, it's disrupted. So that's kind of how I guess, like even doctors don't even know why, like it's related to weather, temperature, or the osmotic pressure. I have no idea, you know. It's just at times it's really bad. And for me, I mean, other people it is associated to that, but for me it's all over the place, so I don't know. But that's a great question. That's a really good question. Yeah.
Hi, I'm
Yeah.
Lola.
Hi.
Have there been any moments, I don't know if you mentioned how long you've been an outreach coordinator, but have there been any moments where there was a need of a patient that you hadn't encountered a solution for, where you had to kind of source and research for the solution necessary for them, or some sort of new discovery that proved beneficial?
For a patient, for not for one, if I'm getting your question correctly, you're asking like just one specific patient that I had to figure out something within from an outreach perspective to help out?
Yeah, because you mentioned like they have questions about their new life with the injury, as far as like bowel movements and
Sure.
just how to approach this new life. But has there been a need that you hadn't encountered yet? Like you have sports, so
Sure.
for example, if there's something in where you weren't quite sure how they would have to navigate that,
Well, I'm constantly and this goes not just within my role at Mount Sinai, but just for as an advocate within the community of constantly, just specifically when it comes to adaptive activities and sports, to be out there and really pushing other places and facilities to up their game and become more accessible, mainly for the higher level community. Because when it comes to, and when I say the higher level, I'm meaning the quadriplegics, right? So, or tetras. When it comes to paraplegics, it's like we all have our arms. We have dexterity. It gives us a bigger range of doing adaptive sports and activities at a higher level. But with the higher levels, you have to really get out there and kind of, in the hopes of, not for, but just educate like some of these facilities to up their game, to making their facility. And I'll give a few examples. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with VR World, Virtual Reality World. It's like this facility that opened up over on 30 something, whatever. So I went to this place. I went to VR World in hopes of really of being able to bring the wide spectrum of spinal cord with people with spinal cord injuries to experience this. Now, what does this require? It requires that they have a system that these individuals that don't have dexterity, they don't have to have a lot of arm strength, but they have to have some kind of adaptive equipment for people that can't, use their fingers that well. And of course, they don't have that, and on top of that, and this is quite, this is one of my annoyed days with this type of facility, and specifically because, when I go into these new buildings, I was talking to you about this, so this is something that, and I definitely, when I'm out and especially in the city, and I go into a new building that's not fully ADA compliant, that annoys me. With older buildings, I can be, I'm very lenient when it comes to that, but when there's a new building and they're not ADA compliant, so I roll into this place and they have this upper level where there's stairways going up to this upper level, but there's no elevator to get up there, right? But there's there's a few of these VR experiences that I'm unable to do, which is okay, fine. You got a ton on the first level. I can totally have fun down here with my nephew and my sister. It was totally fine. But then when I went to go ask where the restroom was, guess where the restroom was? Isn't that crazy? Isn't that? And at that point, I literally and the other part of that is the person, how the person handled it behind the desk. That's the other part where I literally looked at her and it's almost sorry. I'm just that's the best you got? It's you need to be trained on how to, and it was just kind of this happens time and time again, is this is something that I don't want to deal with, is that kind of attitude that you're getting. And then of course, for me, my sister's you gotta be, effing kidding me. I was done, all right, it's okay. It's because my sisters are really protective of me, and it's it's all right, I deal with it. She was visiting. I was I deal with this on a regular basis, it's totally fine. I'll just roll out, I'll find a place where I can use the restroom, I'll be right back. You and Sebastian have fun, I'll be right back. So, and mind you, before, so my first part of it, I spoke to the manager on site, and about I didn't even know that the restrooms weren't on the second floor as well. It was just some of the VR was on the second floor. So I was just all right, can you, is there any way that I can experience some of that or whatever? I was just trying to be that's not cool, how you have that set up. But to give, again, a little bit of leeway, they're in a transition a place where they're moving to a new facility. So within that, I was just well, I hope you're next facility is fully ADA compliant because this is unacceptable. Okay, so then I guess he heard that I had to go out to use the restroom. When I came back in, he actually approached me. It's like, and he acknowledged at that point how serious the situation was, because that's a serious situation, right? It's like they're literally made that choice to for their place not to be fully accessible, and I mean, it's just, I don't want to say it's discriminating, but it's just, I don't know, it's just it's a huge problem of ignorance that reigns within just our society all around, and that's why there's a huge movement that is really, and I'm a part of that movement in my own way, of trying to shift the minds, which is why I'm here, just shift the minds and the perspectives of like individuals in wheelchairs and what their capabilities truly are. And then of course, like, when it comes to ADA compliant. And to even further that, if you guys haven't experienced this, you must. A really good close friend of mine, she helped put this place together. It's called Zero Space. Now this facility, and I'm actually going to be doing this right here, is set up for no matter what your injury level is. You could be a full quadriplegic with no arm movements, and you can go into this space and have an amazing experience. But again, and it was just because of their ignorance. They don't know. Their ADA compliancy is not quite up to code. So I'm going to work with them on that. They want to be. They absolutely want to be. But they're just like, oh, okay, well, there's 2 steps here. We'll get this ramp, but the ramp is like this. You know what I mean? So and I mean, I can get up and down that. I can get up it with a little bit of assist. I'm strong, but I'm not that strong. But I can get down it safely because I know how to navigate it. But there's a large percentage that does not. And I had to bring that to their attention. I was just like, this isn't gonna go over work really well. But when going in there, they're like, we want to do stuff with you and what you got going on. And it's like, I'd love to, but we gotta fix some of this stuff. And the restrooms too, they weren't fully ADA compliant. Like, they could be fixed, they just weren't quite there. And they thought that they were, but they weren't. So, in the SCI community, or the roller, I call it the roller disabled community, there's a huge movement of pushing for that side, and on my side is just kind of pushing for the recognition that when you see somebody in a wheelchair, don't pity them or don't feel sorry for them, because trust me, if they're out in the world and they're doing what they're doing, they have a pretty damn good life, and don't assume otherwise because that they're in a wheelchair, which again, people do. And I'm no judgment within that. It's just from their perspective and it's also self-reflective. They're putting themselves in that situation. It's like, oh my God, that would suck. Being in a wheelchair, how they do it, blah, blah, blah. What is it like? How do they go to the bathroom? I'm sure all those things are going through their mind. And here's another story that I like to share because it's like a home run to what I'm talking about. So me and a couple other peeps in the community that different injury levels, we were all out. We caught this band in Brooklyn, and we were just doing what we do. We're just out drinking, having a good time. And having a good time with each other, having a good time with the community around us, and then we were out on the street, and one of the persons that was with us, she's a tetra, incomplete, but she's in a manual chair. She doesn't have dexterity, but can push herself around. Everything, beautiful woman, young woman, and I guess she ran into one of her friends that she hasn't seen since her injury. She saw has seen her on Facebook, and the friend, it was lovely. Her friend was there. I guess this is her friend's boyfriend or whatever.
And we were all outside, like hanging out and talking, and the guy's like talking to me, and he was just like, "You guys are so inspirational for being out." And I looked at him, and I was just like, "You're inspired." I had to pause. I was like, "Wait, you're inspired because we're out drinking and partying. This is what inspires you." And I was like, "You should see what we do outside of this." You know, and the community that I was representing, that was a huge card that I was laying down on the table. I was like, we're just out hanging out, having a good time. And I didn't want him to feel bad because, again, but I also wanted to educate him a little bit and be like, "No, man, it's like don't be inspired because you see a bunch of people in wheelchairs out on the town, man. It's like, be inspired when you see somebody do something that's truly inspiring. And if you really want to know what that is, come volunteer at the events that I do. That will inspire you. When you see somebody that is like they're wearing their fear on their sleeve and they're doing something that they've never done in their entire life for the very first time, and they're in order to just to get past everything that there is muddled in their minds about this injury, and that sense of accomplishment is that will inspire you completely, and that right there is a bottom line of why I love doing what I do. When I somebody that's never water skied before and they're afraid of the water, and I build that trust. I'm like, I got you. You're totally safe. This is after. I promise you, when you come back to this dock, you are going to be on cloud 9. You're going to want to go again, and of course that's what happens. But that process of this that anticipation, then they come back and they're literally just their smile is as big as the sun. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful experience to have and to share with these individuals.
Wait, can you tell us how we can volunteer for some of your events?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give out my business card to all of you. You can just shoot me an email. I'll just sign you guys all up to my mailing list. We put out a monthly newsletter that keeps you up to date with what's going on with what we're doing out of the research, not just the research department, but our rehab facility. Also coming up next Wednesday, we have our rehab fair. This is big. We have 2 guest speakers that I nailed down that I'm super excited about. Both Paralympic gold medal, 2-time gold medal winners. One, his name is Kevin Bramble. He was an alpine skier, total. He's right up my alley, adrenaline junkie, madman. He also owns his own company called KB Goods, where he fabricates and makes monoskis for other Paralympians, amongst other adaptive, kind of more adrenaline junkie adaptive sports. And Mackenzie Salden, she is a wheelchair basketball and wheelchair tennis. Went to the Paralympics, and Parapan is where she won 2 gold medals at the Parapan. They're going to be guest speakers, and that's next Wednesday from 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock. It's going to be in the atrium over at Mount Sinai Hospital. I think the entry to that is 100. It's 100 between 100th and 101st, right there, if I'm not mistaken. So please, by all means, come by there. There's going to be a bunch of vendors and everything, and learn more about what's going on with the research division. They're going to have their stuff set up. Their VR study is going to be out there, and many, many, many others. But as far as getting involved with what I do and volunteering is I'll just email me and I'll put you on our mailing list.
Any other questions? Yes. Thank you.
No, that was
Can we get a group shot before you all run out? Oh, thank you.
I think you're gonna be right next to
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
Right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Ready, one more. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Hey.